What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. On the podcast today, we have a really tough competitor, a guy I've met several times going through or being at tournaments and things like that, a guy named John Combs. And so he's going to be on the podcast with us today. We're going to talk about some of the things that he does for competitions, everything from the way he studies jiu-jitsu, the way he implements techniques, all that kind of stuff, and, bits and pieces of who he is, just like any other podcast. But nice guy, fun guy to watch. If you ever go to a competition, if you go over there and watch one of his matches, they're usually entertaining to watch. Like, he's going after it. He's not just sitting back doing nothing. He's trying to finish the match. And comes across as a super nice guy. Again, I can say comes across because, again, I always think about that. I don't know them super well, but it seems like he's always been a nice guy to me.
Yeah, he's very cool. Very, very fun conversation. He was honest about stuff and went through some pretty gnarly injuries, which was cool to hear. He's taken some significant time off of the mats, off of training, and it's just cool to hear how he kind of made his way back and kind of what he values now, what he puts emphasis on as well, to make his jiu-jitsu as good as it can be.
Yeah, and one of the things when you guys are listening to that, when he does talk about the injuries that he sustained and the time off that he had, keep that in mind the next time you have injuries, because you will listen to someone like a black belt talk about, how long they've been training. Oh, I've been training for 12 years or something. It's not quite 12 years, right? There's typically a substantial amount of time that they've taken off for injuries. Life gets in the way. I mean, things just happen, right? I mean, I say I've been training since 2003. That is true. But I've also been off the mat for, a lot of time for injuries or little things along the way. There's also jobs that got in the way, and, girlfriends that got in the way, life got in the way. Just stuff happens, right? So sometimes people get into this thing where they're, I'm worried I'm going to lose progress and I'm not going to be good because I can't train every day like I used to. Everybody goes through it, and people are still very good. Keep that in mind. So with that said, guys, we're going to jump into this podcast and talk to John about his jiu-jitsu, and hopefully you guys get a couple ideas to chew on for your own training. Also, thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Charlotte's Web CBD, you can check them out. They are one of the premier CBD companies that are out there, third-party tested to ensure the quality and the quantity of the ingredients that are inside of the product. And they have a lot of products out there, everything from your basic tinctures, the little droplets where you get your CBD, just pure CBD, to balms and rubs. And they also have a new line out, the Recreate line, which basically takes the power of CBD, right? You have CBD in there, and it also adds different nutritional supplements to it to help support things such as focus or recovery or sleep or whatever it might be. And if you'd like to check them out and save some money in the process, you can go to their website at charlesweb.com and then use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. And again, use the CBD, and we'll talk about the same idea over and over again in this podcast, which is sort of listen to your body, right? You got to listen to your body. And anytime you're taking a supplement, it's really wise to be aware of what it's doing to you. There have been times where I've taken nutritional supplements they're perfectly fine nutritional supplements, but they affect my body differently.
Sure.
And we're not even talking about CBD. We're talking about other stuff, right? Just nutritional supplements. And, it's like a vitamin or an amino acid or something. You take it and I'm like, ooh, I don't like this. This is not helping me.
Yeah.
Or I'll take it like this helps me big time. So again, listen to your body if you take the CBD and see how it works, and go from there. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Matt from Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. One of the fun things I can almost always tell a podcast listener that comes to, say, like one of my seminars or one of my camps. We had a camp like last week, and I talked to a couple of them. I was like, hey, did you listen to the podcast? Oh, I love the podcast. And they were wearing Epic Roll shorts and stuff, which is cool. Again, I like that they're wearing it, and I've never had someone come up to me and say, you know what, I got some stuff from Epic Roll and it was terrible.
Yeah.
It's always a pretty positive experience, everything from the actual gear itself to the customer service that was delivered. And so again, if you guys would like to check out Epic Roll, they have a lot of cool gear, high quality stuff, great designs, great customer service, and you can check them out at epicrollbjj.com. And then from there, if you want to save 15% on the order, use the promo code Chewjitsu, CHEWJITSU, and you'll get 15% off the order. Supports the podcast, and you get some great gear for it. And thanks to our sponsor, 10,000, who makes some of the world's best training gear. 10,000 training shorts are designed with a purpose, packed with premium details. So every piece of the 10,000 training line has been put through countless hours of field testing with elite athletes to deliver ultimate performance, comfort, and durability, all backed by an ironclad lifetime guarantee. They've sent me some of their gear to try, and I've used it. It's pretty comfortable. They've got everything from an inner anti-chafing liners, I think what they call it, right? But basically, when you're running, the shorts, if you're running, doing some lifting, whatever it might be, if you're moving around doing your stuff, it has a lining on the inside that helps keep it from chafing. Along with that, everything's moisture wicking. So I was using some of their gear when I was doing hill sprints out in the middle of, we had a heat wave that week. And so it's 90 degrees outside, 100 degrees with the index plus we're almost in the south. So the humidity is pretty rough. And again, when I got done training, I wasn't completely soaked, which if I was wearing just like a regular t-shirt and pair of shorts, I'm going to be soaked because they're not sort of getting that moisture off to you. And again, that makes a big difference. Like if you've heard me talk about the Origin Gis and how like they wick that moisture off of you, how much of a difference that makes in hot conditions. It's the same thing with their training gear. So again, they've got everything from 5-inch, 7-inch, and 9-inch inseams. So if you want the short shorts like me, or if you want the long ones, you can do that too. And again, if you guys would like to save 15% off the order, you can go to their website at 10,000cc or 10,000.cc, and the promo code at checkout is Jiu-Jitsu. So 15% off using Jiu-Jitsu at the checkout. Also, if you'd like to support the podcast directly and get access to an exclusive library of content we've created and get a Jiu-Jitsu podcast episode with no ads, then go to the website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, sign up, and you can get access to the library. You get access to all the stuff that we've added up there, which is everything from warm-up and stretching routines to rolls, narrated rolls, competition matches, extra videos that never made it to YouTube. Along with that, you get all that and more. Plus, you get the ad-free version of the podcast. And again, that's at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, if you want to join my daily email, become part of the Chew Crew and get my daily email, you can do so by going to my website at jiujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And upon joining, you'll get access to the ebooks that I give away, which will help you do things like drill properly or have some useful ideas for drilling and implementing new techniques into your game to fight off plateaus and those sticky parts of training where you don't feel like you're getting any better. So I've got one for that. And then also the other one is for developing a game plan. And it's very useful. I've unfortunately had people use that game plan against my students. We had that a couple years ago in Atlanta. I was down there and the guy comes up and shows me his completed, because inside the ebook, there's a space for you to make your own. He comes up with his completed version of the game plan and was like, this really helped me at this tournament. Unfortunately, it was used against one of my students, which again, that's unfortunate. But anyway, it's some really useful resources, very short. You can go through all the resources there within an hour, no problem. And again, you can get them for free at jiujitsu.net/join. Upon joining, then you'll also get my daily email, which you can unsubscribe to at any point. So guys, with that said, let's jump into this podcast with John and talk about some jiu-jitsu.
And so your start in grappling, let's kind of get into that a little bit. Your start was as a wrestler, correct?
Yeah.
You kind of
yes, sir.
Talk about that a little bit, getting into wrestling and then your transition to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I started 14, high school, for my freshman year of high school, got involved with a summer conditioning program for wrestling. Fell into wrestling, wasn't that interested in much anything else. Wasn't much of a student, I did okay, but, nothing really grabbed my attention. Sophomore, junior year started to do really good. In between, I believe, junior and senior year, I went to this J-Rob 28-day intense wrestling camp, and that kind of triggered a big change for me. I believe it was before my junior year I did that, and that totally changed everything. I went from basically having a 50-50 record to I think I was 30-5 that year, and so wrestling started to get a little bit better for me. Senior year, I went to state in California, so started to do pretty well my senior year of wrestling. But not good enough to get noticed by anybody. So, just decided, had no real inclination of what I wanted to do in college. So decided to go to University of Colorado Boulder. Knew they had a club wrestling team there. And then while I was in high school, I dabbled a little bit in jiu-jitsu. The one story I love telling is this guy, Jonathan Nicky, who is a former actor, played this role in Stuart Little, way back in the day. And Yeah. He like challenged me to a wrestling match. And I was like, okay, let's go, bro. So I double leg him, drive him into the floor, and he's holding me in half guard. And he like puts my arm behind my back, and I'm like smashing him. Like, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. I'm on top. How are you beating me? And he commanded me I had to give up. And he's like, yeah, it's just jiu-jitsu, man. I'm like, oh, shoot, I should learn this. And, so dabbled a little bit, but didn't really get into jiu-jitsu until the summer after my freshman year of college. That was when I really had the time and delved into it.
What year is this?
This would have been 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when I really started.
What changed for you at that camp? Was there something specific? You know, we always talk about drilling, reps, things like that. What do you think changed for you specifically that kind of gave you this new kind of skill set or new perspective that you were able to kind of have a winning record?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing was just mat time. You know, I just got to spend, you know, what was it, like 4 to 5 hours Monday through Friday on the mats every day. So I just got to be, you know, live on the mats for, I think it was about 4 weeks. And, you know, you get to spend time with college wrestling. It was at the University of Minnesota, Golden Gophers, you know, so some of the best wrestlers in the nation. And, you know, so got to learn some great techniques. But probably the biggest thing was just how hard they pushed you at that camp. Like, it was counterproductive how hard they pushed you, like, you know, Navy SEAL stuff. Like, it was kind of funny. They actually did a Navy SEAL Trident challenge. So, like, to see if you could pass the physical requirements to become a SEAL. And it was funny. I did everything. I did the swim. I did everything. And I think on the pull-ups, you only had to do 6, but I think you really had to do 12. And so I did 6 pull-ups. I could have done like 20, and I was like, I don't need to do any more. And then I didn't pass the SEAL challenge. Even though I did the swim, I did the run, I did push-ups, everything else. I was lazy on my pull-ups. But yeah. So I think it was just, you know, the exposure to really high level technique, you know, kind of seeing how hard you actually can push yourself, you know, and that's something, you know, you need to balance that out with the recovery, you know, especially as, you know, I'm 32 now. So I have gotten, you know, pretty banged up, and I've had to, you know, delve a lot of time and information into the recovery side of things, because, you know, everything's all banged up and broken. But yeah. So, you know, wrestled a little bit more in college. I was earned All-American honors in 2011. So I placed at the club level. I got 4th at the NCWA All-American National Championship in 2011. And then the next year got crushed at that same tournament. And that left a bitter taste in my mouth. And 2 weeks later, I was at Pan Am's. This was in 2012 for blue belt. And that's where I got my cauliflower ear. Like, up until then, I'd worn headgear, and I had very nice ears. And then that tournament, I actually got scraped up.
And that was the day that you became a man.
Yes. My jiu-jitsu years came in. Actually, it took about like 4 years of like just agony. And then after that, now they haven't heard it all since then. But it did kind of, it's a painful process going through them, man. Like, it's not easy.
It is.
It's a rite of passage.
So did you, with your wrestling, did you, when you came into jiu-jitsu, did you have any particular struggles being a wrestler coming into jiu-jitsu, any hangups? You know, I feel like that's anybody that comes from a wrestling background. Like, we have certain, you know, it's like it's like playing like a D&D game or something, right? It's like we have these attributes and these benefits, but then we have these other issues on the other side where these are our weaknesses now. What were your weaknesses coming into jiu-jitsu, if you had any, from wrestling?
So ironically, getting guillotined. Well, I mean, I guess not ironically, but, you know, it's ironic that
that's pretty normal. Yeah, getting guillotined, that's pretty normal one.
Yeah. So not feeling confident in wrestling up, being able to play off my back, like feeling comfortable there. That took about 4 years. You know, from when I started in 2010, I wasn't really comfortable in my back to about 2014. And then, yeah, just getting more calm too. Like, I think there's a much more substantial role of thinking in jiu-jitsu than there is necessarily in wrestling. Like, especially now, like modern, like guard passing against leg locks, like the number of things you got to be going through your head. Like,
well, the pace is just so much different, right?
Yeah.
You know, in wrestling, right? Like, you're going, it's 6 minutes, two, you know, 2 minute periods, and you're go. There's not a lot of time. And, you know, we can't, in wrestling, you can't lock up a person in certain ways that would slow things down. Those have been taken away. So you can't get the tangled up mess that you can in jiu-jitsu, where in jiu-jitsu, you have to take a second, be like, okay, let's take a look at what's going on here before I make that next move, you know? You said it took you about 4 years to get comfortable off your back. Was there any particular situation or circumstance that led for you to get comfortable off your back? Like, did you have to play off your back because of this, or was it something where you maybe had some sort of epiphany where you're like, all right, I need to work off my back, anything like that?
I mean, I wouldn't say there was necessarily an epiphany that I needed to, you know, increase my guard game. I mean, probably what made me most comfortable fighting off was my guillotine, which I really developed mostly between like 2014 and 2016.
Okay.
That's probably what I would say made me more comfortable going to play on my butt, and that led to further guard play later on. But I mean, to be perfectly honest, like I really was just exclusively a top player well past into like 2016 to 17, 18. Like really the first time I even played guard was the last ADCC Open when I was pulling every match. But like definitely just earning that comfort factor of being on the guard. I mean, especially in terms of like escapes and whatnot, like getting out of side control and mount, you know, trying to relax and think through it rather than just bulldozing out. So that's what I'd say would be the biggest change.
What would you say, like, so you said you did a blue belt Pan Am's tournament.
Mm-hmm.
What was kind of your mindset going in, and what was the big difference in that tournament as compared to the numerous wrestling tournaments you've done?
That I've done. So I've done a few jiu-jitsu ones up until then. I mean, really, all that was going through my mind is just, you know, try to get to a single leg, put him down, and get past the legs. And worked well for that. I think I won the first one, but then I got triangled in the second. And then like trying to get the triangle off my head, so I got my ear all messed up. It was a fun time. I loved it, man. You know, I kept doing it the rest of that year. Actually won my first IBJJF in August of that year in Vegas, and then ended up getting this crazy knee infection here.
Oh,
on my
wow,
knee.
man.
Yeah, that happened in 2012. Like right after I won my first IBJJF, it kind of slowed me down for a little bit.
What kind of infection was it? Just like a big staph thing?
MRSA, yeah. It was weird too. Like I got a cut in my foot. No cut on the knee though. Like there was no cut on the knee. I was just walking around in Vegas in sandals, and my knee got like inflamed. You know, you get water on the knee.
Yeah.
And I guess it pulled a few bacteria. 11 days after it started, I went to the ER and they pulled fluid, and then they were like, "Oh, it's probably infected. You can just take care of it. Here's some drugs." And they called me 2 days later, like, "Yeah, that's MRSA. You should start looking at getting a surgeon as soon as possible."
Whoa.
What was that? Let's talk about that process real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what went through your head? What was the whole recovery process like? And also even getting back on the mats and being afraid of like, probably like, shit, I don't want to catch anything again. You know, obviously you can't avoid it, but what was that like for you?
Not fun, you know, not fun at all. You know, I've been through some hard times. That one was especially difficult. You know, cause just the physical pain. Cause like it was very difficult for this thing to heal. Like, cause the scar, it's kind of funny. Like I had this fancy pants doctor do the operation, but he doesn't stitch you up. Some stinking PA comes in who, you know, doesn't really know what they're doing, and they stitch you up. So the stitches were not done well. But really the main struggle was just like coming back into jiu-jitsu. Like I had to wear a knee pad on it, and the scar would constantly open up. So, and then, so in the very beginning, I really messed up too. Like I didn't finish my antibiotic prescription after I got out of the hospital, and I got reinfected. So I had to go to the ER and get vancomycin, and then another month of Bactrim. And so I was a mess. So
that wrecks your body too, man. Like the antibiotics, like, you know, they're an amazing drug when they're needed, but God bless, dude, they make you feel like absolute dog crap.
And that led to further issues that took a few years to solve. But so over the course of realistically, it took me about a year really to get fully back into training on the mats. Like the knee was just a mess, and I was focusing on school too, right? Like I actually got like a 3.9 GPA. You know, like I got injured, and I actually became a bit of a stududent for once that semester. Yeah, that was not a horrible time.
What'd you go to school for anyway? I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your sentence. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, no, for integrated physiology, fancy word for like pre-medical. You know,
okay,
that type of stuff. You know,
you seem like you've got some medical knowledge. Just you're talking about like not icing, and I was like, yep, all right. Let's see what he's been doing a little research.
Yeah,
because that's kind of the old school.
He's a PT.
Yeah,
oh,
physical
really?
therapist. Yeah,
very nice. Yeah, I was working as a personal trainer. I actually just took a few months off to focus on the trials. But yeah, really enjoyed the job. It's led to a lot of interesting avenues for growth, like how to help people, and and studying this biomechanics program right now too, to try and do a better job at that.
That's very cool, man. As far as like your knee goes, you feel you got full function, full strength back, and as good as you ever were?
Yeah. So they removed the prepatellar bursa is what got infected in it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so far, 10 years in, it hasn't had any ill effects. I hope it won't mess the knee up. But now the skin, so the skin here doesn't move, and the skin on this knee does move. Sure. So that's like the main difference. Maybe in another 10, 20 years, it might start making some issues. Maybe there's some, I mean, maybe one of your listeners knows something that I should be doing, you know, because there's no prepatellar bursa here and the skin stays tight. But honestly, man, it hurts less. Like this knee gets water on the knee. Like this bursa gets angry. Like if it was free, I would have them take this bursa out too. Like that's how much better my left knee feels. Like ironically, you know, but
don't recommend that, but
yeah, just saying.
Well, let me ask you a question. What is the bursa
it's
for?
like for like basically cushioning and stuff.
Okay.
Kind of, but essentially when we're kneeling or hit the knees and do that kind of stuff, it just gets inflamed.
Okay. Well, I was sure because I've never heard of any.
Well,
it's like always getting like everybody has like a bursitis or whatever.
Exactly. You know? And what happens is sometimes friction will kind of irritate it. And it's just weird why, if you have an infection or something in your foot, and it might have been a very small tear or a little small cut or something, you know, and that stuff is just so weird. Why the infection may settle in one spot, but that stuff's there for a reason. But you know, when you're doing hours and hours and years of jiu-jitsu, you create dysfunction or injury or kind of chronic issues that lead to, you know, what you have. And scar tissue, and you have a pretty gnarly scar tissue isn't as elastic as normal tissue. Your tissue, like you were showing, it stretches and it kind of has good mobility. Scar tissue kind of lays down in a disorganized pattern, and so it doesn't have the elasticity, and that's why it like feels tight and just doesn't quite move the same, and the skin looks different. And so sometimes, you know, in certain cases, they can go in and remove some scar tissue, but a lot of times you're going back in, you're removing scar tissue, creating more scar tissue. It's almost counterintuitive. And once you've had that need, you know, surgically kind of what you've had going on, you don't really mess with it. Leave it alone if it's not giving you problems, because you don't introduce any other issues in it. So yeah. But what other kind of, you said you've had some other hard times. What other things have you kind of had to overcome, you know, in life or in jiu-jitsu?
Well, actually, with a lot of that antibiotic use led to my immune system wasn't working the greatest. By what I mean is I was very vulnerable to ringworm. So like I would get it and I would take, oh my God, dude, I probably took like 100 of whatever those Lamisil tablets are. Like I probably did significant damage. I don't know if it hurts the kidney or the liver. It hurts one of them, but I did some damage to them. And a big part of my conclusion as to what that was from was I ruined my microbiome because I took, you know, 2 months of Bactrim and then vancomycin and like basically just, you know, firebombed my microbiome, and nobody ever told me that, hey, after you do this, you should get on probiotics, you should get some yoga, all yada, yada, yada. So I suffered a lot and didn't know what the heck was going on, because I used to get eczema too. So I would get like my skin would get broken up and, you know, I would have issues. And after about 2 years of struggling with that, I read this book called The Microbiotic Revolution, or something to that nature. And this guy talked about how to eat the right foods to feed your microbiome, how you want to get prebiotics like inulin and, you know, oats and whatnot that actually feed the probiotics that you're eating from yogurt and kimchi and sauerkraut. And so started introducing that to my diet, paid a lot more attention to my microbiome. And since about 2019, I mean, I've had ringworm maybe like 5 times. Compared to before that, I don't even want to say how many times. It was horrible. So
you became the Lord of the Ring.
Oh, it's horrible. It's a horrible story you can tell. But, you know, if you're somebody out there that's struggling a lot with skin stuff, I'd highly recommend looking into your microbiome. Like I take, first thing in the morning, I take a probiotic, and then come down here, I make lemon, like a juice of lemon, put hot water in that, I'll drink that. Then I either have tea or coffee, then I'll have athletic greens, and then I try to put kefir, sauerkraut, or kimchi anytime I eat some food. So I do take big steps to try and take care of my microbiome.
That's so smart, man. It's smart, and you're still young. I know you say you're like, I'm 32. You got some, you know, obviously some years on you from training, but like that's so smart. And kind of in my question is like, what would you have done maybe earlier? Were you just basically doing those type of things, like as far as even before you had this issue? What's like your recommendation for people? Yeah,
I would have done a lot of that. You know, strength and conditioning wise, jiu-jitsu is a very flexion-based sport. So you want to make sure that a lot of what you're doing in the weight room is extension-based. So, you know, a lot of good work for your glutes, hex bar, deadlifts, you know, trying to do things to activate that, you know, kettlebell, deadlifts, you know, things of that nature. A lot more emphasis on the glutes and your upper back, rather than, you know, I mean, most guys, when we go to the gym, we're going to do bicep, we're going to do chest, we're going to do shoulders, we're going to do some abs.
Bring it all in here again. Just everything squeezing together.
Exactly what we're going to do. And all that just gets you further out of whack. And a lot of what I would recommend is see your strength and conditioning as an opportunity to heal your body, And that's what I'm studying right now in this biomechanics program. I'm really excited about it. So the whole idea of this is you measure people. So you have certain tests that you measure them on. You see what their results are, and that helps you classify people into certain disorders. And based on what type of movement pattern you have, there are exercises you can do to get you out of that. And it's all a very, very interesting process. And I've done a lot of this guy, Connor Harris. He's the guy that I'm studying right now. And I've done a lot of his YouTube videos, and they've helped relieve a lot of pain, like crazy degree. But yeah, so
Yeah, and I know I had some issues years ago with I remember my low back was always giving me trouble, and then my upper mid back would flare up.
Yep.
And so I would think, oh, I need to stretch or something like that, and then when in reality what it was, like I said, there wasn't enough hip extension, so I did have to stretch on the front end, like the psoas and all the hip flexors and stuff, but then I had to strengthen the glutes. And I also had to strengthen the core, but not doing crunches, but doing planks and things in a straight form, so you're keeping everything as if you had good posture. And then the upper mid back stuff went away once I started doing a lot more upper back work extensions, and then stretching out the biceps and the pecs, right? So loosening on one side, strengthening on the other, so then you can have good posture. And that stuff basically got rid of it, right? It was now I don't have problems with it. But again, having someone being able to go in there and help you figure out what that is and then help you fix it is important. Going back to your idea that you're getting older, you are in that 30 plus range, and you are eligible for masters competitions should you want to take them on, right? Which puts you into a certain category, right? You're still young. I feel like 35 is where I started to feel it. 32, I was still feeling pretty good. So maybe hopefully still got those years in you anyway. But going back to being over 30, the body does change. What are some things that you have felt moving into your 30s? And then what have you done to sort of deal with them? What have you done to mitigate some of those things? You're talking about recovery and being smart with that. Or is there anything particular recovery wise? I know you said strength conditioning, but is there anything else recovery wise that you've taken on to help deal with those changes that have happened that we all go through from our 20s into our 30s?
Yeah, 100%, man. So probably the most significant issue that I struggled with, especially in 2020. So that would have been right at 29. So I have a lot of tightness in my right hip. I have one right leg lead when I grapple. So I'm always having that guy there. And a lot of us overuse our psoas and hip flexor muscles because of how tight and compressed everything is. We overcompensate with these guys. And so these guys are doing 4 or 5 different things they were never meant to do. In terms of trying to actually move with your body. So I was hyper dependent on this right hip flexor here. So I basically had a wad of tissue built up here, and that caused huge lower back pain. In addition to that, I had a lot of neck pain as well. But in order to deal with that, it took a long time. But couch stretch, like the stuff you're talking about, getting that set up behind, a lot of single leg, Romanian deadlift.
Yeah.
RDLs. Yeah. So what was this? That Romanian? No. Bulgarian split squat. That's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
good. Sure.
Yeah. You step up through there. So you get the back of the leg strengthened up. A lot of foundation training helped with that too, which is the guy has a YouTube channel, former chiropractor, a lot of different poses you can hold.
For the back and everything else.
Yeah. A lot of stuff from yoga and whatnot. I did a lot of that. That helped out a lot with my lower back pain. But I never really quite addressed the core issue, which is kind of what this biomechanics program is basically trying to do. And a lot of how you should address the tightness on this side is doing different exercises for your legs, like one type of exercise for the right leg and a different type of exercise on the left to try and lengthen the front part of that, and then make the the corresponding side on the other side a little bit stronger. So trying to move things around with exercise. But in terms of what I think has helped the most with this recently is that I've changed how I sleep. So I'll take two towels and a pillow, and I'll put them on my bottom rib, and then I'll put a pillow in between my knees. And that compression there on the spine. So I think when I sleep, it's if this is my hips, my hips bend into the bed. I guess here, my hips bend in, and that hurts my spine here. And then when you elevate it, it takes away that pressure on the spine. So I think when that spine is flared out, that hip flexor has to turn on to pull everything back in. And when you're using the pillow here, the pillow and towels to drive up combined with your knees squeezing, it lets that hip flexor finally relax. So that's something I've been doing that for about a month now. And it's been a pretty ridiculous relief in my lower back pain. Because the way I think it's affecting it most is, it's not just pain in the front and back of the vertebra. It's the sides of the vertebra. So actually getting a stretch, if these are the vertebral problems, instead of going front and back, like side to side. So like actually getting like some relief, like shearing motion on the bottom of the spine there, which sounds pretty violent, but it has helped me feel a lot better. So just stretching the back. The knees over toes guy has a lot of really interesting load bearing stretches that help a lot too. So I've been trying a bit with those. Since my knee injury, I got my knee hurt back at the last ADCC Open. I haven't been doing a whole lot in terms of that stuff, but I was doing about once a week of these load-bearing stretches, which is some very, very, very interesting ideas from that guy. You guys all heard, Ben Patrick, right? User Toes guy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He has an idea that he doesn't really like static stretches. Like he wants all the stretching that he does to be under load. So like you can do a couch stretch, but he'd prefer that you do it like holding 10-pound dumbbells. Yeah. Or, you could do like touch your toes, but like do it holding dumbbells and touch your toes. There's some crazy one where you'll do like, like you have the cable machine, you like put 2 handles on it. You'll like sit with your legs all the way out and then you'll let yourself.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like a four, almost like you're like a split leg, but then forward fold. And then you're,
Yeah, a lot of that's like dynamic, basically like some dynamic stretch. I think there's definitely a place for static, just kind of holding. And there's definitely stretch, like a place for, it kind of depends on what you need. Like I think sometimes
going to you. So here's a question for you. Cause like this PT question. So like for me, like I've got a stretching routine that I got from the guy or from the coach. Right. And, a lot of times we would get static stretches. We would hold for like 2 minutes or whatever to basically open up the movement.
Yep.
And then we would do exercises like load bearing ones to like strengthen those ranges of motion. Yeah. And I felt like I got a lot from that because 100%. It's like if I went straight into the load bearing ones, I don't know that I would have the same range from like sort of loosening up the muscles there. But so
the research is like 2 minutes is minimum to hold a stretch. So you do that, you're creating some new range of motion. Let's say you have a little more length in your hamstrings or something. You can extend your leg or whatever. You can have a little more range of motion. Then what you do is you maybe actively move through that range. So now you start to build control. So maybe if you have if you're limited, but you don't have the ability to activate the muscles in that new range, you're trying to build control and build strength in that new range. And then you will hopefully over time control and have that range. That'll be your range. But like the idea is like Chewy, you said, do the longer hold times, like 2 minutes, then do some loading into it. And so now you have some new range of motion that you're going to try to solidify and kind of control and create some strength in. And then over time that will be your new range of motion. And you can create more, passive range if you need. So there's a lot of different ways and everybody's body is different. Like I think the lesson here is like, have a coach, number one, have somebody you work with, but also see what feels good to you and what your needs are. Like, cause not everybody's going to like the knees over toes guy, or not everybody's going to like these other things. It's like, you got to see what works for you and what feels good and what your body kind of needs. Like you did a little bit of that in your own, you kind of explored and you're like, all right, let me see what feels good to me. What position of sleeping feels good? What changes that stuff? For some person, it might not feel great, but for you, it did perfectly what you needed. So it's one of those things. It's kind of like we talk about like developing your own game as well, right? What feels good? What feels right to your jiu-jitsu versus somebody else's? You may do a position that like, I just don't get it. It doesn't fit right with my body or something like that. So I think feel is a huge part of it as well. We've talked about that. What about like maybe your game? Like when did you feel like you started to kind of come into your own in jiu-jitsu and create like your own unique game that has been very successful for you? And what was that process like?
Yeah. So from like 2014 to 2016, that was sort of like when I went, before 2014, I was a tough purple belt, like pretty decent most places, but nothing too special. Nobody, I wouldn't have won any major tournaments in 2014, not like some of these other guys who were like really good when they were 22, 23. Like I wasn't that good. And then from 2014 to 2016, started to do progressively better. And most of that was based off just really a guillotine. I had some decent wrestling, some decent guard. I had a decent Toriando in the gi, like do. And, a few more attacks than I really give myself credit for. Like my guard was okay. I had a decent understanding of a few things, but my guillotine is what really made a big difference. So in about 2015, I started to catch some people towards the end of 2015. In a single practice, I caught Elliot Marshall and Matt Jubera, who were like two of the best black belts in Colorado. In the same practice, I got them both with a guillotine. And that was a kind of eye-opening thing for me. In 2015, the fight to win pro number one, I won by guillotine. And then in 2016 at brown belt Pan Ams, I got 3 guillotines on my way to the final. And then this Sake Braz, you know him, really, really tough gi player. Have you heard of Sake? You guys heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
He's really good. He's like one of the best guys in the gi. But I think he like took one look at me. I was in some I was at a rental gi on. It was filthy. Like he took one look at me, and I don't think he knew what to make of me in the final. And so like we grip up, and he's just like lightly pushing into me, and I hit this picture perfect Uchimata, just out of like the only judo I've ever done ever in jiu-jitsu. This glorious Uchimata thrown right on his back. He comes up on a single. I whip a guillotine on him and jump into my guard. And in like 29 seconds, I won the Pan Am Championship. Nice. Sadly, not all tournaments have gone like that. But yeah. So that was kind of like my journey. Like 2014, I had a few accomplishments, but nothing crazy. Like there was nobody of any note. And then in 2014 to 2015, 2016 is when I started to really accumulate some accolades. That was sort of when I came a bit of a name. Had my a few videos on flow grappling and whatnot. It was a good time. Yeah. Sadly, it was a long time ago.
Well, you've won stuff, after that. You've done well for yourself afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, like I watched you at the, you took third at the Worlds this past year.
So the guy that got second got steroids. So I'm technically the second place at Worlds.
Okay, so you got second. So you got second at the World. Woo woo. You know what I mean? But you had some good matches there, and then obviously I was watching some of yours at the ADCC Opens that you had, and I remember watching you against that young new wave kid who. Oh yeah. I think he caught you the first round, and you caught him later on. Yeah. It was like really you caught him with the same move.
Yeah, I was in Colorado too. That was really fun. Yeah, that was. He straight ankle locked me in the first time we fought, and then in the consolation finals, I got out of a straight ankle by countering. So I have been working on my leg locks. My leg locks they will probably need work a decade from now.
Like everything else, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I countered on the leg lock, and he just kind of slowed down after that. So I passed. I got a mounted triangle on him. One of my favorite techniques, like in the training room, I probably hit more of that than anything else. Like probably even more than my guillotine. I hit mounted triangles, so I did hit a lot of those. Yeah.
What was it like going into that match? Because you going into a match with someone who has like a win over you is always kind of an interesting thing, and different people respond to that dynamic differently. What did you feel going into it where this guy just beat you earlier that day, and now you're going up against him again in the consolation finals?
I felt like a lot of things had started falling into place for me. Mentally, I wasn't really in the right headspace going against him that first time. And then the second time, I'd had a lot of success. A lot of my good friends in Colorado were there too. Like Alex Huddleston, Peter Straub. I had some really good people in my corner, so I felt pretty uplifted from that. And then, he beat me in a straight ankle lock because I was rolling, which is the silliest thing you can do in a straight ankle lock.
Sure.
He got me when he went belly down, and I was pretty frustrated with myself after that. And after I walked off the mat, I was like, man, that's not right. I know better than that. Like I'd gone over that with my coach literally like a few days before. Like I know what the escape is. I really wish I could go back to that moment and do the escape properly because I know how to do it. 6 hours later, I'm right back in this moment. So like going into it, I did have something to prove. I was like, man, I can defend a straight ankle lock. I know how to do this. I'd love the opportunity again, and we got involved in there. And it's kind of ironic. I blundered. Like I tried to come up on top position before he put the ankle lock. So I basically gave it to him. I made a mistake, but when he put me into it, I defended properly. I countered, came on top, and got the win. But yeah, it felt good too. Like I haven't had many third place medals that have, felt that good. It was a great day. Really
felt that satisfied with?
Yeah, satisfied.
Yeah, but I guess it makes sense, right? Because you got put back into the same thing that you got submitted with, earlier, and then you escaped out of it like you knew you could, and you're like, okay, and then you came back to win it. That's pretty cool. The question for you as far as how you go about studying jiu-jitsu. So, like, I'll ask you later more about the training side of it, but like when you're like off the mats, being a competitor, I think it's important that again, it's important for anyone if you want to be really good at it, but especially for someone who's competing and they're trying to make a name for yourself. And it's really important that you study. What do you do to go about studying? Is there anything that in particular that you find useful to you? What's your sort of process looks like?
So most of the studying that I do is usually instructional based, usually either Gordon Ryan or John Danner, or, something along that nature. A few other individuals that are showing up. There's some of Craig Jones, whatnot, just kind of like the basic people most people study. What I am going to start doing though is be closer to the trials, is trying to pick an athlete and trying to watch, one fight of theirs a day. So probably the first guy I'm gonna look up is Andy Varela. Like that guy.
He's fun, man.
Yeah, that's a scary dude to grapple. Like, that's somebody you gotta be on point against the whole time. But him, and then the other potential guys like Nicky Ryan, may well have to show up at trials again. At 77, and then I'm sure there's another 20 other people that I could study, but there are probably about 10 that really stick out. Like William Tackett, Cody Steele, that caliber. Aim to study them. That's probably my weakest area when it comes to studying is studying other matches. My opponents to be.
I sent Andy a message just the other day. I was like, hey bro, like great matches. Cause I love watching guys that are just like ultra aggressive.
After
I mean, that dude, win or lose, like if he steps on the mat, there's going to be something going on. Right. And
he talks it, he backs every goddamn inch of it back up, man.
He does. And I think jiu-jitsu would be better off with more people with that attitude, right? Just being just fucking go for it, man.
Yeah. Sometimes I ascribe to that, but then first match of the ADCC Open, I had this very juicy guy's back, just some of the strongest arms out there. And I'm on his back, God damn, I got 4 more minutes of this. Do I really want a hand fight? And
back mount is so when you take back, early on when you get back mount, it's when you're at the lower levels, sometimes it's just kind of it's over. I got this. We're about to finish this. When you get to back mount against good people, I mean, it's like the friggin' the hand fighting, you'll get done. And I mean, maybe you won the match or maybe you held back, but then your hands are locked up from trying to hand fight and wrist fight. I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah. And then, those tournaments, I had 4 more after that to go. So, but, I did try to go for it. I think I almost finished him with a triangle and whatnot, but there is that at the back. But I'm almost always trying to finish. My stats back it up too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do usually go for them.
Yeah, you're an exciting grappler too. I don't want to just talk to anybody, but you're a good grappler and you're fun to watch. That's why I was watching your matches at the Worlds, right? Okay, John's going after it and something's going to happen. It's not like I'm gonna go watch one of your matches and it's okay, we're gonna double guard pull and just sit and look at each other.
I would like to always be the entertaining guy going for the kill, but strategically that's not always the wisest option.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing between matches? If you've got, trying to recover, what are you doing to maybe get your mindset where it needs to be to keep your body loose? What kind of things are you doing? Are you listening to a certain type of music? Are you saying anything into yourself? What's kind of your ideal way to get yourself ready for a match?
So usually right after I get done with a match, I usually have a honey, I'll take a little honey bear thing, usually try to get local, if that's possible, local Texas honey or local, wherever you are honey. And I'll just take a big swig of the honey. I'll take water, an amino acid tablet, and then Shroom Bionic. So those are the 2. I usually take one of I'll take a few before I get started in the warm up. And then after every match, I'll take those. If I feel like I have enough carbs, that's great. I won't worry about that. Then sometimes I'll have a little bit of a protein bar, a little bite of some protein. And then from there, usually just go sit down, talk to my coach, some mobility routines before the match as well. And then just visualizing, good things happening off the rip, slapping a bump, post, collar tie, pulling down, fake shot, and trying to visualize that, initial sequence in the match.
Yeah, that's good. And that's a great thing. So you're kind of really focusing on yourself. You're not really, are you ever looking at your opponent, what they're going to do? Are you ever anticipating certain things? Or you just kind of I know what my game plan is. That's what I'm going for.
Usually I tend to focus more on what I'm bringing to the table. Obviously certain players like with Taza or whatnot, you need to imagine the different contingencies that are coming out of there and prepare for that. But with your average individual, I'm usually just imagining good things going for me. If I know that I need to be aware of something from this guy, say it's PJ Barsh and he's got wrestling from hell, then maybe I'll have to visualize different things going on from that. Or with Tazi, trying to deal with his leg entanglements, trying to pass the outside, not letting him get set anywhere, dealing with his dang knee bars when he sets them. So yeah, but usually it's much more of a, just a more self-centered focus. I feel that I perform better that way than when I tried to worry too much about what the other player is going to bring to the table. Yeah. But, and then back to the studying component, just real briefly. So what I've been doing recently is making flashcards. So instead of writing out big notes on sheets of paper, I'll make flashcards. So with each one of the DVDs, they usually have it in a section. So it's there's one section, you put the name of that section on there, and then on the back of it, you'll put the important notes on there. And so as you look at the flashcard, you try to remember what you studied in the morning. So I'll have the flashcards, I'll make them in the morning, And then at night before I go to bed, I'll look through them. And I feel that that's one of the better ways to study. So the ones that are really easy, you can put in one pile. The ones that are more challenging for you, you can put in a different pile. And those ones you'll go through more realistically.
Here's a question, sort of build off of that on that idea of studying. Here's a question on the implementation. When I talk to people with this, I mean, you may have a different sort of way that you go about this. There's sort of two general categories that I tend to find people. There are the people that, like, when they get a new technique or a position, they drill a lot. They'll grab someone, let's get reps in, boom, 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 boom. Let's do lots of reps so I can get comfortable with this. And then there's other people who, are like, I don't really want to do any reps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the gym and I'm going to roll with people, and I'm just going to allow myself to do this technique and only this technique or this position, or they'll do situational rolling, right? But they won't actually drill a lot. Do you have a preference between those two? Do you do a little bit of both or more than one than the other? What's your thoughts on that? Drilling or just doing rolling with a specific focus?
So right now, I train at North River Jiu-Jitsu with Josh, and he'll run the practices. And it's usually about 40 minutes of drills, 40 minutes of training. And so it gets to be about half and half of what you're saying. In these weeks to come, I'm going to have way more time to play with, because I won't be working. And in that case, I'm probably going to look to add in some more drilling opportunities. And the way that I think it works best is to drill 3 different techniques in a sequence. So like drill 1, 2, 3 on your partner, then your partner drills 1, 2, 3 on you. And then you'll do that for about 5 minutes. And then you'll do 5 minutes where you increase the intensity a little bit so the person's resisting. And then at the end of that, then you'll actually go live and try to work in from that situation. Yeah. So like those different 3 gears where you're drilling with a little resistance, and then live training. That's probably what I'm going to be looking to set up.
Gotcha. When you're rolling, do you have a particular, everybody's got a different sort of answer to this stuff. And so when you're rolling, are you picking out, like, going into class, are you picking out the toughest rolls like every time, or do you say, okay, maybe I'm going to roll with some of the lesser skilled people and I'm going to use my new stuff on them or whatever, and then I'm going to roll with the tough guys and I'm going to try to just get those like scrappy rolls, whatever? Like, how do you break that up, or how do you decide on who to roll with when you're getting ready for training?
So it's both a good and a bad thing. So the gym I train at's pretty small. They're on average, the night classes are pretty big, but there's nobody of any note there. And that is a bit of a very challenging point when you're a good grappler. There just aren't that many people out there that can compete with you. That was a huge problem for me in Colorado. It's a problem for me pretty much wherever you go, except, Austin, New York City, a few other places, Southern California, where you're going to be surrounded by that level of talent that can really push you. So when I'm training in the gym, Danny and Gino, they're my 2 roommates. They're the 2 guys that give me hard rolls. I try to roll with them as often as I can. And then the rest of everybody else, it's just a good opportunity for me to practice my techniques. I've been working a lot on my back takeoff leg locks, trying to put people in a few more leg locks. I've been hitting a nice straight ankle here and there. But yeah, I just have a room, with about 7 to 8 people I enjoy training with, and I'll pick them out. And, there's no real order in that. If I was with an elite team and I had a room with like 3 or 4 other people that were, not to be too arrogant, but on par with me skill wise, the training I'd be undergoing probably look very different. I'd probably be doing an easy day, and then the day after that, probably a harder day of training, some along those lines. But right now with what I have, I'm just trying to do the best.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not arrogant. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, when you get to a certain point of jiu-jitsu, especially if you've gone full time for a while in it and you've dove all into it, very few people do that or have the luxury to do that or choose to do that. So, the mat time is just going to build up. And so it only makes sense that obviously when you have 99% of jiu-jitsu practitioners are hobbyists that are just having fun with it and doing it at varying degrees, right? Everyone from like the, once or twice a week to the people that are, you have hobbyists that are training 4 to 5 times a week, but at the same time, they're not living a whole life around this one thing. I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever think about maybe like doing a training camp, or have you done that before? Like traveling to some of these gyms, staying for like 2 to 3, 4 weeks, getting some really tough rounds and consistently building your game up that way? Or do you feel like you can get what you need in the situation you're in now?
So I was looking at potentially doing that. The team that I think would make a lot of sense for me to train with would be 10th Planet Atlanta. Yeah, that's right.
Tough.
Yeah, 10th Planet Atlanta, I think would be a really good place for me to go train. And I know the homie Keith Kokorian, he used to live here with us. He's on his way back for a visit. I think he's going to be going to do his pre-trials training over with those guys. So definitely want to do that. I'm probably going to need like 1 more week for my knee. I can't, but it's been a month, dude. It's like literally, like if I had tapped against that damn knee bar with Taza like a quarter of a second or half a second sooner, there would have been no injury. But like being stubborn for like, oh gosh, the sport is just ridiculous. So I'll be good in about a week or so. But and then definitely I am trying to go out and get some more scrappy rounds with some folks. Just dealing with injuries, especially the past year and a half, has just been very challenging. Like September of 2021, had a major neck injury. And then March of 2022, got my arm damn near broken off. Get Alan Sanchez. Yeah. Damn near broke my arm off. That took 6 months to heal from. And then, and I'm more or less healed for most of the stuff until, my foot, my knee from the ADCC opens, but now I'm doing pretty good. But that's just nature of being, grappler, dude. Everything's going to be hurting. And every other guy I talk to, they're all dealing with the same thing. We're all injured with astounding regularity.
Now, are you getting injured in like competitions or training?
Recently it's all been from, competitions, the past 2 that I got, and the one before that. Apart from the neck injury that I got in 2021, that one was in training, but all the other ones have been in competition. Yeah.
How's your training changed? Have you gotten, now you're a masters competitor?
Not really. He's an adult competitor.
No.
He's eligible.
I saw like the IBJJF.
He's almost ready for his AARP card.
So listen, I did see like the Masters, Master Worlds. It had like Hinger was in there.
Hinger's like Master 3 or something.
Dude, he's like my age. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So there's
and it's like, and it was only a couple of years ago that he won the adult worlds, so like,
and like JT Torres is in there. JT's a stud, of course.
Yeah.
Like, I was making a joke on you being old because I'm about to be 40, so you're good. You
got.
But
years. I mean, like to Chewy's point that he made earlier on, I don't think your average man in society really hits a stride until 45, 55. But in Jiu-Jitsu, that's when most people make their stride prime earning years. So it takes men a lot longer to develop. And for Jiu-Jitsu, I think the peak for any athlete is between 35 and 40. So I'm moving towards that. So I'm middle age in Jiu-Jitsu, but as far as, a man in America, I'm extremely young. Like I know I have a huge amount of time and, just got to figure out how to spend it appropriately.
Yeah. Oh, have you changed how you train? Like, how hard you train, how many days a week or even like hard sessions you do just to kind of keep your body like working the best?
Yeah. I would definitely say, it's probably been in the past year or so here that I really cooled down a lot. After my arm injury from Alan about a year ago, I only trained like 1 time a day, and I would take a lot of frustration out in that practice. So I'd go really, really hard. And then, looking at my practices before that, that's usually about the case, even during my time at Studio 84, when I was in Michigan, I would always be training pretty hard or not training at all. But as of about a year ago, I definitely did start to slow down quite a bit and just chill out. Mainly just being so stinking injured was holding me back. But as I recovered from the injury and started work as a personal trainer, I didn't have just one thing in the day I was doing. I had to teach sessions in the morning, go to practice, and then eat lunch, go back and teach more sessions. It's like, man, I can't afford to just give everything I have during this hour. I got to take a bit more of a cerebral approach. So that's definitely been a big change, the past 6 months here. I've been taking a much calmer approach to training. Still savage beatings left, right, and center, but, a bit more cerebral.
So you've trained at a lot of different places, and I guess you've sort of been traveling for several years at different places and stuff like that. What sparked all that? Like, was it just you wanted to get different feels for different bodies or different gyms, or?
So what really sparked it all off was so ADCC 2019 didn't really go that well for me. The camp for it leading up to it was it just wasn't a very good time for me. I was pretty unhappy during that time. So, after 6 months of things not really going too well for me, I knew I needed to make a change, but didn't really quite know where to go. So decided to leave, just go on a bit of a road trip. And, went through Texas. I actually came here in Florida, at the beginning of 2020 to check a few places out. Then coronavirus shut everything down. 3 months, I went to Colorado to quarantine. And then at the end of that, took off in the summer, dabbled around a little bit in Texas, but then hooked up with these guys in Jersey when I got a job offer there. And so that's what kind of drew me out over into that direction. Largely was the draw being able to train with at the Blue Basement, back where Danaher and all those guys used to be at. So that was a big drawing influence for me. So I thought I had it made. So went to Jersey. That was in September of 2020. And, it was perfect, dude. I was getting paid a huge amount every week, living taken care of, driving taken care of. I was able to go train at the Blue Basement 3 times a week. Like, things were great. And then they ended up moving away. And so trained in Jersey till about the end of the year there, then Michigan, then Florida here, until then. So all sorts of places, man. It's been a good journey, though. I've loved it.
Well, what's been maybe your proudest achievement so far? And then obviously I think we can ask, I have an idea or two, but what do you want to accomplish now moving forward? What's kind of your career trajectory? What would be like the highlight of your career if you could write it perfectly?
So like in terms of like my whole career, what's the thing that I'm most proud of to date right now?
So far, yeah. And then also what's kind of the goals moving forward? What do you want to accomplish?
Okay. Probably, obviously ADCC trials, winning that event was, one of the, proudest, happiest days of my life. Having my dad there was pretty cool too. And that victory opened up a lot of doors for me that probably wouldn't have been there. Like the job in Jersey probably wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have the street cred from winning the trials. So you take out that trials victory, my future from there looks very different. So it is rare there's one event that does have a meaningful effect on your life. That one really did change where things went for me. And then what was the other part of that? So
what's the goal? Like what do you want to accomplish moving forward?
I mean, obviously, every athlete in my position wants to win the ADCC World Championship. That would be the main goal. But, also I'm 32 and, starting to look at, what am I going to be doing with my life over the next, 3, 4, or 5 decades? There's a lot more than just jiu-jitsu. So, trying to set up, for me personally, like the main business goal that I'm at right now is trying to set up, kind of like, I know you guys do a whole bunch of YouTube stuff, but trying to set up, a subscription-based service, something like that, where I can start getting my philosophy and techniques and information out there to more people.
Mm-hmm.
So, just making a bunch of content and creating and sharing with people, trying to have as large of a positive impact as I can. That sort of be what my other goal would be, because looking at the game right now, man, 77, geez, a flip, dude, it is nuts how, like, compared to what it was like 4 years ago to what it's at now, like the level of skill is just unbelievable.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu just continues. Like it's like every year exponentially it like evolves and grows and gets better. And it's just like it almost does. It's like I don't know. I'm waiting for when it's gonna slow down, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna slow down anytime.
No, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we're in a new age where information can be transmitted so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, you think like I know when I started in 2003, which isn't really that long ago technically. If you wanted to learn something, either you got your happy ass on a car and you drove, or you went to a seminar, or you had you went to you bought an instructional disc that would be sent to you and you put it in a DVD player. And there was at home, I remember some of us getting portable DVD players to take to the gym.
That's awesome.
Now it's just like it's at your fingertips, everything's there, and it's like you can get whatever you want to. And I think because of that, it transmits so much faster now. And for the most part, a lot of jiu-jitsu guys are very open with their stuff. They it wasn't like I remember talking to a guy who trained it back in the Carlson Gracie senior days. And he was talking about they hid all their techniques. They were keeping them secret because they didn't want anybody to see them. Now everybody's just like, take it. We're going to make something else up later on, so it shares faster. So
yeah. The VHS era, right? That Budo videos or whatever it was, right?
I mean, this is before like Budo videos got big in like 2000. For at least for me, it was like 2007. 2000, somewhere in that range, 2007, 2008. That's when I found out about Budo videos. Before then, it was like you would get I remember I'd get on like the back of the magazines and stuff. It'd be back of a magazine. You'd have like the instructional list, and you can order them. And I mean, some of them were god awful. I mean, you can go back and watch some of them, and it would be like these MMA fighters where they would just show them how to fight, and they would show some random stuff, and there you go.
The Boss Rutan self-defense video is always a classic, where he's like beating the dude up with a chair and a bar and hitting his head against the table and stuff. That's interesting. John, I wanted to ask you, man, if you could give your younger self any advice that maybe could have helped you, or if there's a white or a blue belt that you could speak to, what would you say? Is there anything you change or do differently, or what advice would you give?
So probably the best thing you can do for yourself, like no matter what type of skill you're trying to acquire, business you're trying to build, is just focus on your sleep. Like that's easily the biggest mistake I've made in the past 10 years. It's easy for 9 p.m. to become 11, and it's the small amounts of discipline spent every day late at night will have a huge payoff later down especially if you're doing 2 or 3 hard sessions a day. Only way you're going to feel good without that, unless you're really taking care of yourself, is, pick up a sauce. So, that would definitely be one of the biggest recommendations. And then built into that is trying to have evening and morning routine, trying to have a set of activities that you're doing every night, no matter what, in the morning, every time, no matter what, which, over the past 6 months, I've been quite good at it. The past 2 months, not so much, but since the beginning of the year, I have been quite a bit more disciplined than usual. And when you have that consistency, that's when you start to really see some really good results. So focus on your sleep, get some good morning, evening routine. And then, the fourth thing in there would be like the, diet and strength conditioning. Once you've taken care of the really important things, which, your basic fundamentals, taking care of yourself, getting to bed on time, waking up, doing your stretches, all that, then you can focus on the other components, diet and nutrition. Nutrition and strength conditioning.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's like those small little things, like in jiu-jitsu, it's grip fighting, it's hand fighting, body positioning and posture and all these things, which make the sweep or the takedown happen, right? Like we're working on takedowns at the gym right now for the standing work, and it's like every class starts off with like hand fighting and like basically getting into stances and working all that stuff because it's huge, right? It's not like the stuff that you think about, but it's huge. And even like with my riding lessons. So have you ever ridden a horse?
Way back in the day. Yes. Way back.
Okay. So like you get into riding and there's like, you're doing all these little bitty things with your feet and your heels and stuff to like basically talk to the horse. It doesn't look super cool, but it's like, that's the stuff. And like doing that stuff, like you said, like going to sleep early or going to sleep in accordance with what you're trying to do. Right. So maybe if you train really late, then maybe you can go to sleep later and sleep in, but getting your 7-8 hours of sleep every night. Right. And keeping that routine alive. So you have your sleep hygiene set, and that stuff's important. And it's often overlooked for, hey, what's the cool supplement that I need to take? Or, hey, what's that new sweep I need to know that nobody else knows? It's like, that stuff's cool, but this stuff's really important and it makes all the other stuff possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good foundation. It's like some of that stuff's like low hanging fruit and you take it for granted almost because it's there and it's available to pretty much anybody to go to sleep. And it's just like, if you do that, but it does take discipline. It's like, man, I gotta get off your phone, get yourself in a good space to get some rest. And I think it does pay dividends. And I think the thing about being younger is you can get away with a lot more. Your body can compensate a lot more versus when you get a little older, it's you realize it and you pay for it a little more. So it's good. It's good advice. And John, if anybody's interested in what you're doing, want to check on kind of what you're doing, learn from you, or kind of get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Instagram's the best way for that. So Combs Jiu-Jitsu. On the IG, it's the best place for it. And we're going to figure out this YouTube thing. I've definitely got some questions for Chewy. And so for at the moment, Instagram's going to be the best way to get in touch with me. And hopefully some more online content coming out here shortly.
And what's your next competition you got coming up?
So that's going to be the ADCC Open in Chicago on September, I believe, the 9th. And then the week after that, I'll be doing the Enigma in Boston. So, I'm going to hopefully go see the BJJ Fanatics people. I got some family out that way. I'm sure it'll be a nice time to be on the East Coast. So look forward to that.
Very cool.
Nice, dude. Well, good luck to you coming up, man. And thank you for being on the show.
Heck yeah, I had a blast.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So thanks for being on the podcast with us. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got some ideas from John that might be useful to you. Again, I like asking people. I ask a lot of the practitioners that come on the podcast some of the same questions because I like hearing about the slightly different takes that people do, with their stuff, and slightly different takes that they have with their training. And so again, hopefully the idea with the podcast at all times is to make sure that when we're done, you guys have something that you could think about for yourself. Like, is there an idea that I can implement to my training tomorrow, or I could use in my life tomorrow? Right. So or today rather, not tomorrow, but today. So that's the idea. So again, hopefully you guys walked away from this podcast, or if you're driving, then you're driving away from this podcast with an idea of something that you can implement. And again, from there, just make sure you implement it. Good ideas they're a dime a dozen, but the implementation of those ideas is what's really, really important. When we were talking about the idea of using a instructional, for me, an instructional course, not a podcast, but a seminar, any of that stuff. If I can get one thing, that's all I need. That's all I want is one thing. You give me one thing that I can use, and that's a big deal, because think about it. If you went into training and You know, you can think about how many times you use one move that's very effective for you, right?
Yeah.
A lot, right? We all do. We all use, like, we all have some moves that are, these are one moves that we use all the time. So imagine you were able to add a move like that every seminar, every instructional you bought, or even like once a month. By the end of it, you'd have 12 new moves. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot, especially if they're actually effective.
Right.
You know, and so again, that's what I'm looking for me personally. And so again, when you guys are doing your own study and everything else, you know, if you can find just one thing that you can implement, that's huge. And so again, thank you guys for sharing your time with us and being here. Also appreciate you guys that gave us a review recently on the podcast. A lot of you guys sent in emails and everything else and threw up some reviews on different podcast rating sites or whatever, you know, like I guess like Apple's and stuff like that. So again, thank you guys, because it does help. It's a big help. And so again, it puts us in a position to where more people can find us, because if the system says, hey, everybody is reviewing this podcast and it must be good, let's put this in front of more people's eyeballs or more people's ears.
There you go.
But
your
their
earballs.
Well, your eyeballs still have to make the click, right? Your eyeballs, you still have to see it. So it puts it in front of more people, and that really does help us. So thank you.
For sure.
And also, guys, thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen, because if they were not with us, you guys probably wouldn't hear from us so often. So again, appreciate them. Charlotte's Web CBD. If you guys want to check them out, I'm a big fan of the company. They have such a great story about how they got started. You know, again, it was basically they wanted to help out this young girl who was suffering from seizures and things like that. And at the time there was no readily available access to this CBD oil that they used that really helped out big time for her. And so they created their company. That's where it got started. It's a beautiful story. And it's since grown into a very large company, a relatively large company. But again, they do a good job of staying with that ethos of helping people out, you know. And again, it starts from, you know, making a really good product that's third-party tested, so you know what's in it and you can rely on that. And then also too, adding different product lines that could help people. I've been using it for several years. And again, it's part of, for me, going back to what we were talking about with John, being older in recovery and that kind of being a thing. It is one of those supplements that I do think helps with recovery, mainly because it seems to, at least for me, it seems to support healthier sleep cycles. You know, and again, that's what I notice is the big difference for me when I use it. And so that's why I've been on it for a number of years. And again, I encourage you guys to try it out and see what you think. And if you'd like to use it, go to their website at charlottesweb.com. They have everything from the tinctures to the balms to broad spectrum CBD, which doesn't have the THC issues that sometimes CBD can have. You can do your research on that, and you can check that out at their website at charlottesweb.com. And if you find something you want, you can save 20% on your order using Jiu-Jitsu 20 for 20% off. Also, thanks to Epic Roll. EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. They've been a long-time sponsor of the podcast. I've done several orders with Matt for the type of gear that he does. And again, I like his products. They're good products, cool designs, great customer service. And again, if you maybe want some no-gi stuff, check out his Velcro less shorts, non-Velcro shorts, super comfortable, not too short, not too long, somewhere in the middle there. And again, all the designs I think that Matt puts out are pretty decent. They're pretty good. And in a lot of cases, for me, I'm more of like a minimalist. I like more simple stuff. He does have some designs that are a little bit more, you know, I don't know what your word. Colorful, flamboyant.
Yeah,
out there.
He's got like some tie-dye stuff.
Yeah, he's got that. But then there's also just some really simple stuff.
Sure.
Which is more my style. And again, if you've seen some of my, like the Kimura shirt or the triangle shirt that I've worn in videos, Matt makes those at Epic Roll. So EpicRollBJJ.com is the website. Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And also thanks to our sponsor, 10,000, who makes some of the world's best training gear out there. Recently, I got a hold of the interval shorts that they make, some of the most comfortable training shorts I've ever worn. And again, they have them in the short length of 5-inch seams. They've also got 7 and they've got 9. You know, so if you're like you can go in between or you can go short. And again, with the deal that we have with them, you can save 15% off the order. They have free shipping over $75, and it comes with free 90-day returns. And lastly, you get a lifetime guarantee on the shorts. So again, it's a good deal on some really high quality training gear. So if you want a pair of shorts that you can do everything from, you know, do a hardcore like CrossFit style workout where you're just a sweaty mess, you know, going after it, just lifting, going for a hike or running, whatever it might be. Again, check them out. 10,000.cc is the website. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off. And again, just some incredible training gear that you can put to the test for yourself.
And I actually have some of their pants on, the tactical pants. I
What
wear them all the time.
And what I think is funny is you got those pants before they ever messaged us.
Yeah. So I was just like doing my own research, and I just liked what they had. I liked the design of it. And
So when you were researching, like what made you choose
I
that?
just wanted like a pant that was like versatile, like that I could kind of like go hiking in if I wanted, just wear like casually, or even like kind of like a dress. So they're just
I was gonna say like
really nice stretchy pants. And,
I was gonna say probably pretty comfortable, because with you like doing PT work, when you're working with people, you probably want a pair of pants that aren't like super stiff. You want something that's very flexible and mobile,
and I've
right?
got tons of pockets in this thing, which is cool. It's got like zipped up pockets.
Uh-huh.
They have this really cool one where in the back it's like a back pocket, but it's got a zipper.
Okay,
which is kind of neat. I don't know. I like pockets. So they're pockets, but it doesn't look like it has a bunch of pockets.
It doesn't look like a pair of cargo pants.
No, it's not cargo pants at all, but they're really comfortable. And I just like, I'm hanging out. I just wear them all the time. They're like some of my favorite pants.
Yeah. So check them out, guys, at 10,000.cc. And if you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join, you will get access to the library of content we've been creating over the years, which has everything, again, from warm-up routines and stretching routines to narrated roles, unreleased YouTube videos that are never published for one reason or another, to some exclusive stuff that we only put up there with our guests from every podcast episode. And then once you join, you also get access to an ad-free version of this podcast. So you don't actually have to listen to the ads if you don't want to. I mean, you can still listen to them if you'd like, but you don't have to. And again, it helps support the podcast, and you get some cool stuff, and you can subscribe or unsubscribe at any time. And again, that's at Jiu-Jitsu, or that's at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, guys, if you would like to join the Chew Crew and get my daily email, you can do so by going to my website at jiujitsu.net/join. When you join, you'll get access to some ebooks and resources that could help you out with your training. One is about drilling, which I take it towards focusing on how to break through plateaus and training like sticky points. We all get there. We all have them sometimes. A lot of people struggle with them. I tend to find that I think, at least in my opinion, they're very easy and very predictable to overcome. And again, if you use the strategies that I put in the book, the ebook, which I give away for free on that website, very easy to overcome those sticky points. So if you feel like your game has been getting better and better, and all of a sudden it stops, and you're like, God, I feel like I'm not getting any better, and everybody's getting better than me, then go to my website, jiujitsu.net/join, sign up for the email list. You'll then get the ebooks. You can read through them, and then you'll get my daily email. Now, if for some reason you're like, you don't want my daily email and you just want to keep the books, then you do that, and that's fine with me. You can take advantage of that and put it to use, and again, break through those plateaus that you have in your game. So anyway, guys, that is the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something for your jiu-jitsu, and we'll talk to you next time.